Everybody, Mike Jeffers, Chicago Jazz Magazine, ChicagoJazz.com, and welcome to Chicago Music Revealed. We are doing a special series of interviews with some of the influential people on the Chicago radio scene. And I'm joined here by one Dave Freeman. I'm sure many of you know Dave Freeman, but he is going to be part of this panel Sunday, April 26th. 2026 from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the Cultural Center. It's called Our Jazz Life, a celebration of the history of jazz radio in Chicago, spearheaded by Mark Ruffin. And Dave, welcome to the show. I'm glad we're talking. I haven't seen you. I think I saw you at a fest last year, maybe last year or 2 years ago or so.
Great to see you. You're doing great work. Keep it up.
Oh
Appreciate
man,
it.
I appreciate it. But let's talk a little bit because I told you before I started recording, I listened to you on the radio, and when I was coming up, I've said this on every interview. When I was coming up, the importance of radio with me after I got out of music school, listening to Larry Smith overnights, and I would
Yeah,
discover all these different artists that I would never have heard of and bought records from because of the radio, because of what I heard. So, I mean, talk a little bit about the importance of the radio, how you got involved with it, because you were what, 5, 6 days a week, right?
yeah, I was 5 days a week and occasionally worked as an engineer on the weekend for people like Reverend Milton Brunson. And I asked myself at age 17, oh, what am I going to do? We all do it.
Yeah.
And I laughed. I said, well, I know how to play records. I'm good at that. And I was already making mixtapes. I had a reel to reel, and I decided I was going to pursue radio. Went to Columbia College when it was on Lakeshore Drive, before it was accredited, and class number one Al Parker. A lot of people can say that, and he told us a lot of people in this room will never see the inside of a radio station. But, I just kept with it, and it was for love of music. It wasn't anything else. And that really drove me. So, did the radio show at Columbia College, which I call PBS, Pretend Broadcast System. Back then, they were on in the lounge and the elevator. But, did that and did radio internships as part of the program. First one was with Bert Burdine at WSCM, Jazzed Up Rock Station with the Girls.
Yeah.
And there's stories that I'll share at the event about being at WSCM. And then on to Triad, and wrote my first commercial for Tangerine Dream. So I stole from the Beatles. Turn off your mind and float downstream into a tangerine dream. Yeah. And I've been doing copywriting ever since. It's one of my loves. And through Triad, I'd already met Saul Smises, the disc jockey. I'd been on the air with him. I brought him a bootleg of Pink Floyd called The Coming of Cahutek. And so I'd been to the studios, and I got to work at Triad, and I was offered a job at WLS in traffic, or I could sell advertising for Triad Radio and Magazine. So I went the creative route. I didn't want to push paper. It's not what I got into. So worked for Triad, and their contract went up for sale. Now, WXFM was brokered radio. You bought the time by the hour, you resold it by the minute. Station kept a few minutes per hour. They could run, whatever they want. And so I put together a deal to buy that contract. And the talent was to be Don Bridges, who did a year at WXRT. And he queered the first deal. And I found another group of backers who wanted to do it because, and this will blow your mind, the cost of time on WXFM off Sears Tower, 1978, $35 an hour.
Wow.
Imagine what you could do with that.
Oh man.
And but you could still lose your ass.
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah.
And eventually that's what happened to the original group. Don Bridges did album rock. I mean, he would do discographies, 3, 4 hours of the Beatles, The Who. It was good radio, but he was like the bad seed. He pissed everyone off, and I couldn't get a record company to buy advertising. They just wanted nothing to do with him.
Yep.
With 2 weeks left, 2 weeks left on their contract, they fired him and put me on the air. Now, I had DJ'd parties and done Columbia College, but I went right basically from Columbia College to WXFM, and I had 2 weeks of free form where I could play whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
I when the show was Funkadelic, standing on the verge of getting it on, living it up, the Isley Brothers, and School Days, Stanley Clark, followed by a side of Electric Ladyland. That was fun. And first call comes in, and this will be told at the event. And WXFM. I didn't hear anything right away. Then all of a sudden, I heard the sound of the toilet flushing. The guy I replaced, Don Bridges, who the next week came up, signed my name on the building log, and stole half my record collection.
Oh, gee.
I'm telling you that I have to write the book because it's stupid, ridiculous, and man. But that's how I got my foot in the door. And I took the contract over to Teddy Schwartz at Musicraft on Oak Street, where I had worked in 1974. And I just handed it to him, said, "Can you do anything with that?" And he was the biggest stereo retailer at the time in the Chicagoland area. So he had a lot of advertising budget, co-op money.
Hmm.
And one look at that $35 an hour and said, "Oh, yes, we can." And so I always had my cost of operating covered.
Yeah.
My price went up every year. They jacked it up, but I never had to pull a penny out of my pocket, and that's how you do brokered radio.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then the advertising on my show, Night Jazz, I was very specific. Think of the entertainment section of the Reader. That's
Hmm.
how I looked at my show. So I sold restaurants, nightclubs, record companies, concerts, all stuff you wanted to hear about. So you didn't have the urge to tune out.
Right. Right.
So, if I didn't like your food when I went to your restaurant, I didn't ask for your business. So I had credibility, I had great sponsors, and I had the time of my life from age 24 to 30. I could barely buy myself a drink, walk into every club. Um, so yeah, it was quite a time.
Isn't that wild? I mean, I don't think a lot of people even know about brokered radio. I know about it, but I mean, I think a lot of the general public, they have no idea. So the stuff you're talking about right now, people are like, that happens? I don't know how much it happens anymore. I think there's only a couple, right? Only a couple
Yeah,
stations.
well, there's still some on the AM that you
Yeah.
can. But anyway, so when I showed up at WXFM, um, I came on after the Scandinavian American Hour, Libby Olar's American Israeli Hour, Eamon O'Malley's Irish Hour, some
Hmm.
gospel. So I had no lead in whatsoever. But I was on the air from 9 to 1, and then in the blink of an eye, the owner, Robert Victor, sold 2 of my hours that I had under contract to E. Rodney Jones of WVON fame. And I talked to a lawyer. He said, "Oh, yeah, you can win in court, but you won't be on the radio anymore." It was great advice, so I had to let it go.
Yeah.
Um, but over time, E. Rodney Jones worked at WXFM. Herb Kent was at WXFM. Purvis Spanier, all day, all night blues man, working on you for a little while. He was there, and at the height of our power, Daddy O'Daly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Daddy O'Daly is, if we're going to talk about Chicago jazz radio, I'll put it to you this way. Who did his opening? His Ed McMahon kind of here's Johnny? Dick Buckley.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So Dick Buckley did the opening to the Daddy O'Daily show.
Wow.
And for me, I remember I'd hear Daddy-O on WJPC AM 950
Yeah.
growing up. I heard Herb Kent there as well. So I already knew who these guys were. In my house, one of the first jazz albums was Who's
Mhm.
Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Jimmy Smith.
Yeah.
Evocative cover, huge orchestration. So I love the music. And the liner notes written by, well, the liner notes said, Jimmy Smith is so far ahead of the competition, he's lonely. And it was written by Daddy O'Daly. So Daddy O again is was the biggest
Oh.
influence.
Well, you know, that's somebody that I was talking to Richard Steele earlier for one of the interviews, and we talked about it. And I didn't realize he used to fill in for Daddy O'Daly when Daddy O'Daly wasn't able to, be on the radio. He would only allow Richard Steele be the guy jumping on at that station, and it's amazing too because I just find it fascinating because Daddy O'Daly, this legendary jazz DJ, was a bartender, and just by chance, who's the famous guy that walked in? You would know his name, and I
Oh,
just
Dave Garroway.
Dave Garroway. He walked in and put him on the radio, and if he wouldn't have done that, who knows what would have happened? It's those chance encounters that can change people's lives and change generations of lives.
Your musical host who loves you most. Swing surely yours, Daddy-O from the patio.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, so we had a lot of fun. We got into a fight over Rick's Cafe, American. I'd been there much longer, so I'd done business with them. But
Mhm.
he said, Dave, don't piss in my face and tell me it's raining. So at the highlight of WXFM, Wayne Messmer was on in the morning. I never heard him. I was sleeping. Count BJ, who was your Italian American, um, had some criminal indictments, got into a major war with a media columnist. I'll go back to that story later. But he was on then Dick Buckley. Dick Buckley did a couple hours of WXFM stories there. Frank Lee, not Frank E. Lee, Frank
Mhm.
Lee, real name Frank Eppolito, jazz drummer voiceover king. He did images of jazz with Cheryl. Don Lucky would do an hour, and then I'd come on from 6 to 8, and Daddy-O was on from 8 to 10. So in our heyday, these were all disc jockeys. That's the beauty. And the future of radio, as messed up as it is, might be found in the past.
I think
Because
it's the personalities, man. It's all about the personalities and the relationships that
part
you
of it.
connect with, right?
Well, you've got to, it's like the Mamas and Papas song, Words of Love. If you love her, you must send her somewhere where she's never been before. That's the only future in radio. I got something unique coming up that I'll be posting in the next couple of weeks. A radio format that's it's a bigger pie. I'm not
Mhm.
taking little slices. I'm baking a big pie.
Yeah.
And it's funky, horny music. So anyway, WXFM was a riot. Um, Occasionally Frank would try to, hey, come in the bathroom and have a little, because he wanted to laugh at me goofing up while he was driving home. So he was forever trying to do that to me. Didn't work, but I did over imbibe one time and managed not to fall out of my chair. Started the day early at the Bulls. Everyone should do that once.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the legendary Bulls. Oh man. All right, so all of these stories, and I don't know, I was talking to Mark earlier, Ruffin, and I'm like, how are you gonna do a panel with like 7 or 9 DJs slash station managers slash program managers slash radio people? Because they're all gonna talk, and you're gonna try to wield it around and get everything down. And he's like, I'm not sure. So there's going to be a lot of stories flying around on Sunday, April 26th. It's going to be a lot of fun, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the Cultural Center. Our Jazz Life, a celebration of the history of jazz radio in Chicago. Dave Freeman is one of the panelists. And Dave, I was going to mention, where do you see radio going now? I mean, you've got the whole background, but I like you and I always talk and we get along well when we start talking about business stuff because you're a lot like, when I started Chicago Jazz, I had to sell advertising to pay for a
Yeah.
magazine. I mean, so both sides of the business, both sides of where everything is. Where do you see this going? Do you think that over the air radio with a
Well,
combination of internet or
it's time for me to ride in as a hero because look, the score is simulcasting on FM on
right?
104.3 FM. My old frequency, 105.9 FM, is the simulcast of AM 780.
Yep.
So it's clear that the music programming department of Radioland is not functioning properly. They're just doing the same stuff they always do. And who knows? I might save the world one more time. Frank Zappa in the album Absolutely Free, you open it and there's a picture of him, and the caption says, "Kill ugly radio." Apparently had an effect on me, and I hope to do it again.
Well, that you and I have to have a long conversation because obviously we're doing short hits on this thing, but you and I could talk for 5 hours with no problem at all. And when you get these things launched, I got to be the first one to talk to you because I got to hear all about this.
Yeah, no, commercial radio, I loved it. I just handled it differently.
Yep.
And, commercials are part of the programming. And as you know, in sales, if you really want a client, you're going to give them a better rate. But if all your clients are keeping your listeners, not turning them over, so I get it from A to Z. And I think I've got something that it's funky and horny. I'll tell you that much. And it includes all the world music because music radio, you have to throw out the categories and you have to think in terms of rhythm and tone. The world doesn't need much more white guitar music. I mean, the electric, even when I was at WXFM, I could play the Crusaders, horns, and a little Larry Carlton. But as soon as I switched over into the more Brand X, the harder fusion stuff, it was the tone that bothered people. They didn't want to hear screaming guitars, they wanted to hear saxophone
Yeah.
and percussion. And so people have to think differently about how to program music radio. It's rhythm and its tone. And when you look at it from that point of view, you can play a wide spectrum of music and not lose anyone because that's how people listen.
Yep. That's it. That's
You
it.
but I just have to get off my butt because I hate selling my ideas. I've got a million of them, but I need someone out there to pitch them.
Yeah.
As,
Right.
as Bill Porter said, hire Hiram cheap. He's my manager.
All right, Dave, I appreciate you jumping on Sunday, April 26th, 2026, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., of course, at the Cultural Center, Our Jazz Life, celebration of the history of jazz radio in Chicago. Dave is going to be one of the panelists among many with Mark Ruffin. You've got Dan Bindert. You've got Richard Steele, of course, and Bert Burdine.
Man, the
I just talked
pioneer.
to, what a sweetheart he is. He's got the stories too, man. This is
Well,
going to be
I got
quite an
one with
afternoon.
him. Well,
Oh,
yeah, and also I did a show on WNUA
right?
called All Chicago Style. I did all Chicago jazz for 6 years out at WDCB.
Yep.
And then after 10 years, I went over to WNUR just to see if I remembered how to be a DJ. And I did a couple years over there. And what a WNUR, all potential, none of it used. The recording studio next to the radio studio. Oh my
Right?
God. And it's just sitting there, ugh, waiting for me. All
All
right,
right.
great to talk to you. Thank you so
Hey,
much.
Great talking to you, Dave, and we'll see you on Sunday, but I'm sure I'll see you at a festival this summer and stuff. And you'll have to come up to the Gateway Theater sometime that I'm running and hang
Oh,
out. I'm running the Copernicus Center right now. So,
well, no, I didn't know, and I would love to because we can chew the fat for a while.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate you jumping on. And of course, all the information is going to be on chicagojazz.com. So we'll link it up down below and it'll be on chicagojazz.com about this incredible panel. And hopefully I will see somebody out on the scene.